guys, welcome back to Mugisen podcast. I'm Summer.
And I'm Lynn.
And before we jump into today's topic of identity, we just wanted to give a big shout out to all of you who gave us all the love and support for our first episode. We did a lot better than we expected, and it was just great. We got such great feedback from everyone. It was amazing. Thank you all so much. And we also got some great comments on our YouTube channel and Instagram, and it was amazing overall.
Yeah, we're really thankful for everyone who reached out and, gave us their thoughts, and it was overwhelmingly positive. So it's pretty exciting, and we hope we can, keep doing this and entertaining people, and not just entertaining, but also educating from our perspective.
Yeah. So I guess we can just jump into today's topic. Today, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about identity. And we have like a list of questions that we wanted to ask each other just so we can get started on this podcast episode. So, one of the first questions was, how do we identify ethnically? We did go into this a little bit in the last episode, but Lynn, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I do identify as half Vietnamese. And like I mentioned before, I usually just say Vietnamese because I definitely grew up more with my Vietnamese side of the family. But
Mm-hmm.
I do identify as someone who is, half Vietnamese and half white American. What
Mm-hmm.
about you?
So I definitely identify as half Japanese, half Norwegian. I usually don't mention the half Norwegian part. I don't know why. It's just like self-explanatory, or usually people are more interested in the Asian side. And because I'm just more closer with my Japanese heritage than I am with my Norwegian heritage. Unfortunately, I
Hmm.
wish I was equally as close.
Do you think that's, influenced your identity at all?
Yeah, so living in Japan for 9 years has definitely influenced me being closer to my Japanese side. I think it would have been the opposite. Like, say I had lived in Norway for 9 years, just
Hmm.
most of my childhood being there, I probably would feel a lot closer to my Norwegian heritage. So that's definitely helped a lot just living in Japan and
Hmm.
also being surrounded by my Japanese family pretty often. Like we would see them all the time. So that definitely influenced how I identify.
I'm kind of the same, even though it's here in the US. My mom has 11 siblings, and about 80% of them actually live in the same area that I live, like within an hour drive. And it's been like that my whole life. So I definitely grew up, seeing them way more often, hanging out with my cousins, and just, interacting with that side way more. And I think that's like part of the reason why I identify more with the Vietnamese side. And also because I'm actually the only one out of all of my cousins, like my generation, that's not full Vietnamese. Just to grow up, everyone around was like fully Vietnamese and stuff like that. And I just was a part of that. So that's kind of a big reason why I usually just identify with my Vietnamese side.
You bring up like an interesting thing. I just realized that I'm also like the only grandchild cousin on both sides of the family that's half.
It's actually the same on my dad's side too. We're the only one that's not fully white,
Yeah,
you know.
I know. I
First.
Yay. I never thought about that. Has that ever been weird for you? Like, have you ever felt like you're different and don't belong because of that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I guess this is a good segue into talking about ethnic identity development. And
Mm-hmm.
for anyone that doesn't know, ethnic identity development is a concept in social psychology that has to do with self concept and personality development, specifically like within people who are a part of an ethnic group. And it gives people a sense of belonging because humans need social groups and a sense of belonging in general to really thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think, being part of two or more cultures makes it easier since you'd be like, oh, there's more groups you can identify with. But I feel like it's actually the opposite in the experience because
Yeah.
first of all, you feel like you have to choose. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to choose,
Yeah.
but you do feel pressure to choose because people do ask you which side do you identify more with, like what are you more of? and stuff like that. But no matter what you say, the group nowadays, I mean, it's probably going to change as time goes on and more people have like interracial families,
Mm-hmm.
but you're always going to be othered by one
Yeah.
by both sides. So
Oh my gosh, yeah.
the ethnic identity development isn't really fostered that well because you want to be part of both groups, especially even your family. You want to be included in your family, but you're always going to be othered
Yeah.
somehow. Even if it's like not intentional,
Yeah.
you're going to be, and this is another question we had, which is like an annoying experience or a negative experience you've had with your identity.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty annoying to be invalidated or othered because of something, and it's like a personality trait of yours, and one side will say, oh, it's because you're Asian, or oh, it's because you're white, when
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to be a part of their group. So even if it's not intentional, you're being othered for something you
Yeah.
can't control.
Yeah. When you say othered, I just automatically think about flashback to applying to colleges and like doing the Common App. Oh my God, that was like the worst. And I remember, wait, Landon, you and I like applied to college at the same time.
Yeah, we graduated high school in
2015.
2015.
Yeah. Ooh, now you guys know how old we are. But anyway, um, so yeah, I remember doing like the Common App, and I think they didn't even let you pick multiple races. I
Yeah, I
remember
don't
I
think
had
they
to
did.
pick, yeah, I remember I was like, why can't I click on two of these? Like, I was gonna pick white and Asian, and they
They
wouldn't let
didn't.
me, and I had to click other.
Yeah, they didn't even have the option to pick. Some of them now have the option to pick
Oh, yeah,
two or more races, and then you
yeah.
can specify. We could do a whole nother episode on how kind of dumb that is, because that happens to a
Yeah,
lot of people. You know, they just say just pick one,
it's
which
annoying.
is, yeah, it's annoying, but it's also kind of like terrible to feel like you have to just pick one.
We shouldn't have to. And
What
I
did you
felt
pick?
I picked other because I was like, I'm not gonna pick one over the other because I identify with both. Like I didn't
Hmm.
understand why they didn't have like a two or more races category at least. I really appreciate when, yeah, we'll do another episode on this, but I really appreciate when they allow you to pick like what your specific race is, multiple of them if you need
Hmm.
to. I think that's really nice. But yeah, I had to put other, which is really like,
Yeah, it's
I don't
kind of
know,
dumb.
it's dumb, and it like doesn't, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm part of the other category. And I remember looking at the statistics of like the college I went to,
Hmm.
and to be honest, the one that I went to was pretty like not diverse. And so I looked at the other category, it was like 3% or like 6%. I was like, oh
Hmm.
great. There's like 6% of me.
Yeah, on those, I usually, you're already kind of feeling weird because you have to put yourself in a category in the first place, even if
Yeah,
we
exactly.
weren't biracial,
Hmm.
but then not even name what categories you're a part of is
Hmm.
pretty, kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck, but honestly, I let my true colors show in my Common App because they were asking about like they ask you to like write an essay. Oh my gosh, I hated that. But I just straight up was very honest about who I was. I was like, I'm half.
Yeah.
So they knew. Um, but but it was just kind of annoying to click the other category. But anyway,
Have you ever felt negatively, or what else is annoying about other
yeah,
people in your identity?
so I was gonna share like this one experience I had. I was really young. This was back when I was living in Japan, and I went to school, an American school on a military base. And on the military bases, they have these food courts, and they have like different, like American restaurants and stuff, or like fast food, like
Oh, I didn't know
Taco
that.
Bell. Yeah, it's so cool. They have like Taco Bell, taco smell, as we call it. I don't know why, but it's anyway, it's funny. They had Popeyes, and
Oh,
they had like a bunch of different ones, but they had Dunkin' Donuts, and so sometimes my mom and I would go to Dunkin' Donuts, but this time my mom just sent me by myself, and she just waited for me in the car. It wasn't like a drive-through or anything, so I had to go into the food court. So I went up to Dunkin' Donuts, and there was this lady there. I don't know what her ethnicity was, but I think she was Filipino because she she asked me what my ethnicity was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm half Japanese." And she was like, "Oh no, you look Filipino." And I was like, "No, I'm half Japanese." And like at first I was like, "Oh, this is fine. I'm just going to correct her, maybe she didn't hear me." But then
Hmm.
she just kept insisting that I was Filipino, and she wouldn't let it go. And I was like, this is the most bizarre thing. I've literally told you who I like, what I am.
Hmm.
I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time, and
Hmm.
this lady is just like, she keeps pushing upon me that I must be Filipino. And I was like, I'm not. I don't know what to tell you because that's just not who I am. And that really confused me as a kid because I was like, what was her goal in trying to push, I don't know, what she thought I was upon me.
I think it's also really weird because if you see someone who isn't biracial, like someone who, is appears to be monoracial, everyone knows like it's not okay to say that stuff
Yeah.
to somebody. It sounds like everyone thinks it's okay if they think that you're biracial.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't bother me. If you're gonna like try and guess what I am, like what my
Hmm.
ethnicity is, I get it. I understand if you're not gonna know what I am because it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. So
Hmm.
I don't mind it if like on the first try or two you're like, oh, she looks different. Like I've gotten so many different ones.
What do people normally think you are?
The most common ones are like Chinese, or they think I'm Hispanic.
Yeah, I
I've gotten
definitely.
Hispanic a lot. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've also gotten Hispanic a lot, like growing up. And then as I got older, I think they started saying, are you, it was really weird. It was really specifically half Chinese or half Korean. But I kind of
Mm.
understand the half Chinese because I speak Chinese.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
sometimes people will ask, like, oh, are you half Chinese in Chinese to me if I'm like speaking to them in
Right.
Chinese? But I'm not.
Yeah.
And then I tell them I'm half Vietnamese. And I get half Korean on it because I think, based on history, there's way more people my age who are half Korean, especially where we live,
Yeah,
versus
that's so
half
true.
Vietnamese. Like,
Yeah.
I think being half Vietnamese is definitely like pretty common now for people way younger than us, but in our like age group, it's not as common as
Yeah.
some of the other mixes.
Yeah, I only know one other person that's half Vietnamese.
Yeah, we're a rare breed.
Yeah, you definitely are.
Which
Oh my
also
gosh.
kind of reminds me, what do you think of words like that when people call you
Breed.
like
Um,
I can't even say it with a straight face. Like, just to clarify, being called a half breed is not okay to anyone who's biracial. Just to
yeah.
clarify, that's not okay.
Breed, you probably don't want to use that. I'm gonna just throw it out there. I don't think most mixed people would be okay with that. But personally, I really don't mind, other than breed,
Hmm.
I really don't care if they use mixed, halfy, hafu, because, a lot of people in Japan say it's just like a Japanese phrase, hafu.
Hmm.
I have a lot of family in Hawaii. They say, a lot of Japanese family in Hawaii, but they say hapa over there.
Hmm.
I am not offended. I really don't care. And like, if you say something that I'm not okay with, I'll just tell you. But I'm not gonna hold it against you or take it personally because I'm just trying to, like,
Yeah.
I don't mind educating people on that. Like, it's not a big deal. If you don't know, you don't know. And I don't mind teaching you. And if I don't know something, then you should teach me. Like,
Hmm.
it's really hard to offend me in that sense because I know being like, this is partially why we made this podcast. There's not a lot of people who know about being biracial or multiracial, and it's okay if you don't know how to approach it. It depends on the person. Lynn, what do you think? How do you feel about those words?
I definitely do not appreciate being called like a half breed. That
Yeah,
makes me feel like a dog.
I know. I was just gonna say that too.
And I personally don't care about this word, but some people do care about being called mixed
Mhm.
because that's also like the same kind of terminology people use for dogs.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually don't like the word mixed. I'm okay with the word mixed, and like you said, you're okay with it. And I used it a lot in the first episode, and it made me think, that's probably not a good way to start out a conversation
Yeah.
with anyone you know who's biracial. Well,
Right.
first of all, you shouldn't be starting a conversation with anybody asking if they're biracial. It's not okay to do that to monoracial people either. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if it comes up, I know a really easy way people are teaching is like, oh, are you part X? Are you part Y? Like if someone brings it up, instead of saying
Yeah.
like, are you a half breed or mixed or whatever, just like that's some easy terminology, and like, figure out what that person is okay with. Like we're both okay with saying mixed. I say mixed because it's easy, but not
Yeah.
everyone's okay with saying mixed.
Yeah. I agree with you. Just saying like part would probably be best. And
Yeah,
then
and then
you
that
can,
person will always tell you like what they're okay with.
yeah, and then you can just pick up through natural conversation like what they use,
Hmm.
like we did. We just, I guess we use like mixed and half a lot.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, that's just what we're comfortable with.
The number one word I absolutely hate is being called exotic. If you call me exotic, I will hate you forever if you
Yeah,
call me exotic.
I've
Like
heard that
exotic
one.
looking and stuff like that. I'm not some kind of animal. I'm not a rug. Especially because in the United States, it's, pretty diverse. It's not a homogenous country.
Yeah,
So calling someone exotic is very othering. You know,
yeah,
it's not okay. Don't use that word.
yeah. I actually do not like that word. I also hate, and this is probably just because I'm Asian, but I have been called Oriental. I had somebody at my part-time job back in college during the summers. I had this one older gentleman come up to me, and he had the best intentions. I'm just gonna say that, but he was like, "Oh, are you Oriental?" And I had to stop myself from getting upset, but I was like, "Do you mean am I Asian?" Um, it was just I don't use that word because that's a very old term. The only reason I like
It's not very
didn't
nice.
it's not very nice, but the only reason I didn't get upset with that person is because they're from an older generation, and I understand that that's probably what they grew up with. And so I just like, corrected or redirected the verbiage to a more PC version. Yeah, it was very odd to hear that. So probably don't use that term. I don't even know if people our generation use that term.
It's not cool. Just figure out, if you have friends who are biracial or like,
Yeah,
multiracial, because there's plenty of people who are more than just biracial. Figure out what they're okay with.
yeah,
Don't, use terms you would use with dogs or objects as a general human courtesy. And if you wouldn't ask a monoracial person that, don't ask a biracial or multiracial person that.
yeah, exactly.
Pretty simple. Treat us
Just
like people.
Yeah, that's literally it. Just ask questions if you're unsure in a polite way. Yeah, literally, just talk like human beings.
Hmm.
Treat each other like human beings. Yeah, definitely don't use that term.
I think we had a one last question that was pretty interesting is how have you identified over the lifespan?
I feel like my parents were both really good about making me feel proud of who I am. And not just in like a biracial way, just in general, but yeah, I've never felt ashamed of who I am
Hmm.
ethnically, and I don't think I've ever struggled with that, thank goodness. I know a lot of people have, and I sympathize with that. And I know people have tried to make me feel ashamed of at least like one part of who I am,
Hmm.
but it's never fazed me. I've always been so proud of myself and who I am ethnically. What about you?
I'm in that category that definitely had a struggle. I think, obviously when I was really young, I never thought about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of sad, but honestly, a lot of it does have to do with how you think or how you think you look and how other people perceive you, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
honestly does, it's sad, but it does play a part
Yeah.
in how you see yourself.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I definitely looked more Asian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and then when you're younger, you don't think about it that much. But then, your formative years, like early teens, throughout your teens and onward, I definitely had a stronger formation of my identity, and I struggled a lot. I definitely hated myself, like actually hated myself and how I looked for a really long time until pretty recently. And I think we can actually talk about this another time too, about, accepting even just like certain features of yourself and finding how you look on both sides. Even though you don't look 100% like either one, it's okay. I definitely
Yeah.
didn't accept that for a long time and would try to do, it was really popular right now is like Korean makeup. I definitely went really deep into that to try to highlight features of myself that were more from the Vietnamese side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I even used I think you know what it is, but there's like double eyelid tape.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
So
Yeah.
it's to help people that have like hooded eyelids to try and push and like basically tape in place the skin above your eye to make like a double lid. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually used that in a way to try to force myself to have a monolid for a while. And I wore like the circle lenses, so contacts that make like your irises larger.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a lot of that stuff that was popular in Asia, like for makeup trends and stuff, because I really didn't like how I looked and I wanted to look more like the side I identified with to try and like fit in and not have people pin me as, Hispanic, which is like fine.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong obviously with being Latinx or Hispanic. It's just I'm not, and
Yeah.
I wanted to be accepted for what I was.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to try to change my look so I'd be pinned as that. I used to get straight perms, so I'd have like straight hair, but I actually have like wavy hair. I really didn't like how I looked. I didn't like myself, but recently I've really, come to terms with like, no, I don't want a nose job. No, I'm fine the way I am. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to embrace both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that. Yeah, you struggled with that. But I'm glad you're starting to embrace yourself, you know?
Yeah, I am too.
Um,
It's exhausting to hate yourself, not gonna lie. So like just learning over time, and it does take a lot of time, learning to like accept yourself. Just like an update, I don't do like a lot of that kind of makeup or that kind of stuff anymore. I just do stuff to highlight my natural features, which like,
yeah.
everyone has their own style and stuff. So,
Yeah, and it's totally fine if you want to do that stuff. I know a lot of people who do a lot of different things,
hmm
makeup
yeah,
wise. They just like a certain look, and that's totally fine. Do whatever
yeah.
you want to do, look however the way you want to look.
You just
It,
need to be happy about it. And
yeah,
like, I was doing that stuff
exactly.
because I wasn't happy, and then doing that stuff still didn't make me happy. But if that
Yeah,
stuff is what makes you happy, you should do it. But,
yeah,
I'm definitely
absolutely.
better now accepting myself, so yay.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, some people, I think they go through life and they never can accept themselves. And it's just like a lifelong struggle. I know I said I was very proud of who I was growing up. I always was, and I always have been, and I will continue to be. I think you mentioned something like you just notice, like at a certain age, that you're different,
hmm
and like not not in a personality way, like oh you're different, like you're fun, you're unique. No, it's like you notice that people are staring at you, people comment on your looks, people kind of judge you for how you're looking, and I noticed that at a pretty young age because
hmm
growing up in Japan, there aren't and I wasn't living close to the military base. I was like an hour and a half away from where I went to school, so I didn't
Hmm.
have a lot of American friends or like half friends. I was living like kind of out in the country
Hmm.
in semi-rural, semi-suburban Japan, and it was 99.9% Japanese, like 100%,
Yeah,
you know?
because it's
Um,
such a homogenous country, like
exactly.
outside of the cities, especially, and
Yeah,
even like still in the cities, but like outside of the military base and stuff.
it's just you definitely get stared at more. And that's like obviously that's not the worst thing that I've experienced, you know.
Hmm.
But it does make you question why people are looking at you. And I think it probably jump started how I viewed myself.
Hmm.
Because I guess I just knew that I was different from a very early age because
Hmm.
people would just comment on it. And it's just like me, we're walking around like the Japanese mall or department store, and it's like my mom, she looks Japanese, and then there's me, I'm half. Obviously, I'm standing out in the crowd, and then there's my dad, who's white, and
Hmm.
he's obviously standing out in the crowd.
And standing above, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like you stick out like a sore thumb, and it wasn't a negative thing for me, but it did make me wonder why people were so. It just happened every single time we went out, just in Japan, outside of base and outside of cities. It was just like a lot of staring, and it still happens today. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. It's a lot of it is curiosity. A
Hmm.
lot of them are just like, what is going on? I've never seen somebody like that before because a lot of them haven't in
Hmm.
person. I'm not trying to say this is a negative thing. It's just something that I'm sure a lot of people have noticed when they were growing up. I'm sure you noticed it, Lynn, when you were growing up here. Like
Yeah.
people would just notice how different you are physically. It's just
Hmm.
they see it and they probably comment on it or they don't. They just stare at you, which can be rude sometimes.
Yeah, the staring's a little uncomfortable, especially as like a young woman too. It's a little uncomfortable, but you
Yeah,
know, it's usually not out of a place of malice.
usually it's not. Well, we're gonna get to an episode where we share where it's out of a place of malice.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would say for the most part, what I experienced, they were just curious and they had never seen anything like me or my dad before,
Hmm.
or just our family in general before. And probably the same for you, or a
Yeah.
lot of biracial, multiracial people all over the world. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have gone through that.
But, you know, I'm glad we both, you know, accept ourselves, are proud of ourselves now. On a lighter note, we were asked to recommend different teas based on, you know, I guess because the teas that we mentioned that the podcast is named after are not like available in the regular kind of grocery store as well.
Hmm.
So, what are some of your other favorite teas, Summer?
I would really drink any tea, but like I'll just recommend some ones that I like. I'll recommend one that you can find easily in America. Um, I just really like chamomile. Chamomile, some people say it differently.
Hmm.
I think it's so good. I just mix it with some honey. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But so like my favorite ones, like in Japan, it's like this brand called Oi Ocha. You could probably find it in some Asian
Yeah.
grocery stores. It's
Hmm.
really good. If
It
you
is really
like,
good.
yeah, if you like green tea, so they have like a light green bottle and like a dark green bottle. The dark green bottle is more bitter, and the light
Hmm.
green one is still kind of bitter, but it's less bitter than the dark green one.
Hmm.
So if you like green tea, definitely try Oyocha. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm a fan
Yeah,
of that lighter one.
yeah, it's so good. It's so refreshing. What about you?
I will also drink pretty much any tea, to be honest, but I really like black and floral teas. So, you know, I'm kind of basic with my black teas. I like Earl Grey. That's my go-to. I do like green tea as a variety because the lotus tea is technically a green tea.
Mm.
So I do like green teas. The lotus tea is a little hard to find. When I asked my mom where we get ours, she got it from our grandparents, and it's like she had to keep it in the fridge, so they were like fresh tea
Oh,
leaves.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, it's so good, but I know it's hard to find, like if you don't want to buy dried ones online. Another really good floral tea that's pretty easy to get is chrysanthemum tea, which is really good. If anyone ever goes to eat dim sum, that's what they serve at the table. It's pretty good. It's pretty easy to get in Asian supermarkets too.
That sounds so
And I
good.
also like, yeah, Earl Grey is my go-to at home with a little bit of milk and a little bit of sugar. Not too much though. You gotta have that
Hmm.
tea flavor come through.
Right. Oh, do you usually do that? That's a great question. We're just gonna do our fun little tea segment at the end. Do you usually like put in milk or sugar or honey in your teas?
The chrysanthemum tea, I'll drink straight. I won't add anything. If anything, I'll put a little bit of rock sugar.
Mm-hmm.
The Earl Grey, I'll put a tiny bit of milk and a tiny bit of sugar. Same with chai. I'll put a little bit of milk and sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Green teas, I won't. I won't put anything in green or floral teas. But in my
Okay.
black teas that aren't like blends of things, like if it's just like a simple Earl Grey or English breakfast type of tea, I'll add that kind of stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
floral and green teas, I won't add anything.
Yeah. I usually, other than like bubble tea and like chamomile, whatever. Other than that, I usually don't put milk or any sweetener in it. I like to just drink tea straight up.
It's
Um,
pretty refreshing that way.
it is. I also have heard people, I don't know, like my dad, he says that whenever he drinks tea, it just like the caffeine affects him so much, like so much more than he drinks coffee. And I'm like, it's the opposite for me. Like the caffeine does not affect me at all, no matter what
Oh
tea I
yeah.
drink. But when I drink coffee, it like messes me up.
Yeah, the caffeine in tea doesn't really do anything for me, but the caffeine and I mean, I drink coffee almost every day. I like both though. I don't really prefer one over the other, but the caffeine in coffee definitely affects me more than any caffeine in tea. I've never had like a problem with caffeine.
Yeah, I've literally never felt the effects of caffeine in tea. Coffee makes my hands shake. Like, it's just crazy. I just hate the feeling that I get from coffee, but sometimes I need it, so I drink it. But I definitely hardcore prefer tea, no matter what.
Mm.
I'm like a diehard tea person.
All right, well, thank you guys for listening. We post every Wednesday, but
Yeah,
you can
but
catch us on most podcast platforms and on YouTube
yeah,
Wednesday mornings. We totally forgot to mention all those things in the first episode.
yeah. And we'll link them all. Just look out for those. All
And
right,
I guess we'll catch you guys next time.
bye.